to another video on the Business Intercept. I am Kiara Ashanti, and today on this particular video, we're going to talk about this situation here with McDonald's, and again, kind of couple and show how this relates to what's going on with coronavirus right now in the country, civil unrest in the country, and the effect both are having on the economy, not just on a macro level, but more micro on what we see in the streets as we drive around town in our own lives, and what this could ultimately mean. And one of the areas that's being hurt most by Corona, believe it or not, is fast food restaurants. And it's being hurt by them in a couple different ways. Obviously, while there are still people who don't want to cook and who are going out there to get quick food. I mean, my Chick-fil-A is still a long line, even if they're not letting people inside. But people are still eating at fast food restaurants less, because in many areas they're going outside less. I'm in Florida. We have not been in as nearly a tight lockdown as places like Michigan and New York and New Jersey. So we were always a little bit more open than those states. But even as those states begin to try and catch up in their opening to where Florida, Texas, and so many other places have been, at least with regard to people being able to go out and run through the drive-through, people just still aren't doing it as much. They're scared. They're at home. They are ordering takeout a little bit more, delivery, certainly cooking a lot more than they ordinarily would. And of course, as some states like California are beginning to go back into a situation where they may do more lockdowns again, there's going to be an even less flow of customers going to restaurants like McDonald's, Chick-fil-A, Wendy's, and what have you. On top of that, amidst a situation in which the economy is kind of moving downward or contracting as a result of the coronavirus pandemic and the reaction of it from people in charge, mayors and governors, we have civil unrest going on. Black Lives Matter. If you've been alive for the last 3 weeks, you've heard of the term a lot more than you ever have in the past. We are having, nightly now, particularly in Portland, Oregon, we're having more and more demonstrations. We've now moved way beyond demonstrations and marches for having to do with police reform as relates to a reaction to George Floyd's unfortunate murder at the hands of a asshole police officer. We've gone beyond that, and now we're beginning to see that movement, which was always a questionable movement anyway, the organization Black Lives Matter. But what a lot of people were doing in the beginning, a small portion, obviously marching and protesting for true reform within how police departments hold their police officers accountable, certain training that police officers are giving. Even though there was always a small portion of that was legitimate, it's been co-opted. And it's been co-opted in a lot of different ways for a lot of different organizations. And we're going to talk about one right now within this story that we see here from Fox News. So McDonald's employees in Detroit walk off the job to cheers as part of a national strike. This story started to hit, I think, either Friday or Saturday. This idea that, of course, once again, there's going to be, in some areas, strikes. Employees are walking off from McDonald's and other places because they want $15 an hour in pay at their jobs. This particular one was also part of a rally as part of a national worker strike to protest systemic racism and economic inequality. And we're going to talk about both of those ideas within here. Okay, so let's go through the story a little bit. So across, it says a group of McDonald's employees in Detroit walked off the job to cheers on Monday as part of a national workers' strike to protest systemic racism and economic inequality. Across the U.S. and the world, workers from the service industry, fast food chains, and the gig economy rallied to demand better treatment of Black Americans in the workplace. This is such a weird story. It really is. Protester David Williams, who had walked off the job, explained that he was motivated to participate in the strike for Black lives amid the coronavirus health crisis, alleging that his employer was not enforcing adequate health and safety protocols among the ongoing outbreak. Okay, so I'm a little bit confused. Is he protesting because he doesn't think the owner and both the owner of the franchise and the manager of that particular location isn't enforcing adequate health and safety protocols? Or is he protesting in alignment with Black Lives Matter for social and economic equality for Blacks? I'm not sure exactly what safety and health has to do with Black Lives Matter. I really don't. He says, I walked off my job due to us not getting essential pay as being an essential worker. We're not receiving proper PPE. As I posted here, I don't even have a mask on. And apparently there's video from the Associated Press in which these people walked off, and I guess they weren't wearing masks. They didn't even give us masks. We didn't get a temperature check, any of that. So I'm walking off to see a change. I demand a change. And then we see this story, this picture here, where basically they're saying they're worth more. I need y'all to congratulate these 4 workers who came out on strike, on an organizer claimed in the clip. So let's see, an average crew for McDonald's during a shift, I think, is probably 8 or 9. So 4 walked off, leaving other 4 to make up until other people come in. So that's bad for the restaurant in the short term because you've got to get other employees to come in. Good for the other employees because their hours are probably contracted anyway. And so they're getting more hours and therefore more pay because they have to make up for the people who walked off. And then, of course, Black Lives Matter. According to the Associated Press, at least 20,000 workers in 160 cities walked off the job on July 20th, inspired by the racial reckoning following the deaths of several Black men and women at the hands of police. The events drew participants whose jobs are in healthcare, transportation, construction, among other fields, who do not allow them to work from home during the COVID-19 pandemic. The strike for Black Lives was supported or organized by more than 60 labor unions and social and racial justice organizations, which held a range of events in more than 24 cities. Support swelled beyond expectations, organizers are saying. In response, McDonald's voiced support for Black communities worldwide and stressed the company's commitment to protecting customers and crew as the pandemic continues. There was a statement. McDonald's unequivocally supports the need for racial equality and social justice and stands with Black communities across the globe where we are proud to offer employment opportunities and learn from our team members to make the McDonald's system stronger. A spokesperson for McDonald's USA said in a statement shared with Fox News on Tuesday, "We believe Black Lives Matter, and it is our responsibility to continue to listen and learn and push for a more equitable and inclusive society." To provide safety of the over 800,000 restaurant crew that have served meals to the community and healthcare workers during the pandemic, McDonald's enhanced over 50 processes in restaurants. McDonald's and our franchisees distributed an ample supply of PPE with no supply breaks, including gloves and over 100 million masks, in addition to installing protective barriers in restaurants. We are confident the vast majority of employees are covered with sick pay if they are impacted by COVID-19. So, listen, I'm not going to look at the other story, but there are a number of other stories of this type. The SEIU, or one of the unions pushing this, of course, they want higher pay, and one of the ways to get higher pay would be for employees of McDonald's or other fast food restaurants to unionize, and then, of course, they would be able to essentially demand higher pay from the franchisees. And I want, as we begin this discussion, I want to emphasize this. McDonald's is a billion-dollar corporation, but the McDonald's Corporation does not own all or even most of the McDonald's franchises that you drive by every day, or perhaps even go and get the best fries around from. Those are franchisees, by definition, small employers. Even if the franchise owner has multiple locations, okay, they are not the corporation. They're not raking in billions. Okay, there are certainly certain McDonald's franchise owners who own 10, 20, 30 locations, and so they are millionaires in the sense of their net worth, and they're obviously getting a really good cash flow from the group of McDonald's franchisees that they have. But there are other franchise owners that only own 1, 2, or 3 locations, and they're no different than the retail shop or the Papa John's pizza shop down the road. So these owners right now are being confronted, particularly places like McDonald's and Wendy's, with a double whammy. You've got Corona pandemic, of course, which is impacting not only their expenses in terms of how much money they have to spend to provide, face shields, PPE, more cleaning and disinfecting, more antibacterial gel that they might have in the restaurants. Many of them, obviously, their operations might be curtailed in terms of hours open. As I mentioned earlier, the Chick-fil-A's around my area are not even allowing people inside. I suspect that's the case around the whole country. That might be the case with McDonald's, not sure. Probably it depends on which franchise location you're talking about. But all of that has an impact on how much revenue that franchise is generating. And then we've got this political unrest and social unrest. We all remember that after the legitimate shooting of a gentleman that tried to attack a police officer with his own taser at a Wendy's up in Georgia, people burned that Wendy's down. That Wendy's, that Wendy's is owned by somebody who isn't a billionaire, who employs other people who are probably black at that location. And now they don't have a job. We all remember a lot of the fires and destruction of property across the nation, but particularly in cities like Chicago, Atlanta, Minneapolis, Portland now, so many other cities that we've seen this, where protests, as soon as they get start, turn violent, and there's a destruction of not only retail shops, small business shops, but also franchise locations of fast food restaurants. That increased their costs. Not only do they have to get an insurance claim, but you can bet as a result of that, their insurance, commercial insurance coverage is going to go up in premiums as well. Because whenever you take a loss and submit a claim, you're now seen as a higher risk by the insurance company, and your rate goes up. It's the same thing when you get in a car accident. You get into a car accident, even if it's your first one, very often what happens to your insurance premiums? they go up because you're now seen as a higher risk. Might not be fair, but at least on an individual level, but that's what happens. So now we have the SEIU and other labor organizations, what I believe are co-opting the Black Lives Movement and trying to use that as a way to move forward with their agenda. Okay, look, if you believe that there needs to be police reform, if you believe that police are too quick to use a gun, too quick to use force that's not necessary, if you even believe that cops are always trying to shoot people, I don't believe that happens to be the case, but let's say you believe that. If you believe that, then protests at a fast food restaurant doesn't change that. This is the thing that's so frustrating, not only on a social political level, but just from a straight business level. Protesting McDonald's and employees going on strike at McDonald's does not change the police department at all. It's got nothing to do with the police. And Black Lives Matter ostensibly is supposed to be about the police and reform. Now, if you go to their website, if you listen to the things that they say in the news, in interviews, if you go on to the other videos on the Business Intercept and look at the video in which I go through the Breathe Act, which is a proposal put together by Black Lives Matter, you see that 80% of the items in their proposal are all economic issues that don't have anything to do with police reform. So there's a problem here, a problem of focus, some would say, but also obviously there's more to the movement than anything to do with the police. And if you're a business owner, you're now confronted with people talking about racial injustice at a business in which you employ mostly black people. I mean, let's understand this, that in Detroit, where this particular restaurant, this particular McDonald's is, at that Wendy's that got burned down, and many of the other fast food restaurants that are in South Side Chicago, South Philly, Camden, New Jersey, Oakland, a lot of the employees are young, teenage black people that need those jobs either to have money to help their family, pocket money for themselves, their first jobs, traditionally getting them used to working and having some sort of responsibility. Fast food restaurants and restaurants in general are the first jobs for millions of Americans, black and white, in the country. For the people who are not young, who are in their 20s or even 30s or older, let's talk about this idea about $15 an hour. So I'm going to bring back up my calculator here again to make a point here that I want to make. So $15 an hour. Now, let's say somebody is working 40 hours a week at McDonald's. Generally, that's not the case, but the argument that's always made when we get into this $15 an hour discussion, particularly for low wage earners at fast food restaurants, Subway sandwiches, maybe pizza places, things like that, is you can't live on what these what their current pay is, which may be $10 an hour, maybe $12 an hour, maybe $9. Okay, depends on the city and location. But they all want $15 an hour because you can live on that, apparently. That 40 hours a week at $15 an hour is $600 a week. Before taxes, you're talking about $31,000 a year. Now, $31,000 a year isn't bad in many places in the country, particularly in, say, Florida. In New York, it's still poverty. In LA, it's still poverty. Okay, but that's just a function of the cost of living there. But I want you to think about this. $30,000 a year. to make French fries, to flip hamburgers. $30,000 a year to make Subway sandwiches. Now, I'm not denigrating those jobs. All work is honorable. Any type of job that you have to feed your family, feed yourself, to have extra cash, to help buy college books, or, help with your mom and dad, to buy diapers if you happen to be a single mom, whatever the case may be, all work is honorable. However, none of those jobs require extensive knowledge to do. The nature of low-skilled labor is that you can take anybody who has a certain IQ level, and sometimes even very often people who are considered special needs individuals who have a lower IQ, so to speak, and you have other disabilities. You can train them to be good employees at a McDonald's or a Burger King or a sandwich shop, or working in a grocery store bagging, okay? But they're unskilled. It doesn't take a lot of, you can show anybody how to do it. It doesn't take a college degree. It doesn't take a technical degree. It doesn't take a high IQ like coding. And because of that, you wouldn't and shouldn't expect a living wage from that. These are the type of positions that you get as first jobs, as part-time jobs, as second jobs, to bring some money in, and then you're supposed to move on to college, to technical school, to learning a trade, to increasing your skills and knowledge to get a job that pays more than $15 an hour. This is always the thing, personally, that I always wonder whenever I see stories like this about the whole minimum wage debate, because I don't understand this, okay? If I go on Career Builder right now and look up $15 an hour, $20 an hour, $30 an hour, I will find jobs. There's no shortage of jobs available under normal circumstances where you can make enough money to live and to raise a family and to, pay your car payment and do all the things that adults are supposed to do. The only issue, the only question is only one simple one. Do you, as an individual, have the skills or knowledge necessary to justify being able to get one of those jobs? If the answer is no, then you don't deserve one of those jobs. Emergency room doctors can make $75 an hour. I don't have a medical degree, so I don't deserve $75 an hour as a doctor. Maybe I can do something else. I can become a lawyer and get paid $160 an hour or $240 an hour. I don't have a law degree, so I don't deserve that much money per hour. I could become a CPA during tax season with all the new tax changes and get $300 an hour. But I'm not a CPA. I don't have the level of knowledge necessary to do taxes at that level. So I don't deserve that. You don't deserve $15 an hour. You don't deserve a living wage for a job that you can get and do with no education and no skills whatsoever. The interesting thing about a lot of the jobs like this is they provide an opportunity for somebody who has dropped out of high school or who graduated high school but did not go to technical school or college or the military to have a job that provides some income. If you start at McDonald's on the, doing the fries, flipping the burgers, moving to the cashier, and 6-7 years later, you're still working at McDonald's and you're not trying to be the general manager of that location or several locations, and you're not trying to learn enough to own your own franchise later on, why in the hell are you still working at McDonald's? You're supposed to have moved on after 2 or 3 years and gone to college, gone in the military, gone to technical school, done something to increase your economic value. This doesn't have anything to do with race. A black man that has a law degree can get paid $260 an hour. A black man that has gone to a 4-year college and gotten a degree in something can go out and get a job that pays a livable wage. If you don't do that, then I don't understand why these people think, I mean, look at this. Look at this. We're worth more. What, really? Why? I mean, seriously. What technical skill does it take to flip a burger? I don't understand that. And I'm not denigrating the job, but what you have to understand is you're not paid according to what you think your worth is. You're not paid even according to how hard you work at your job. You're paid according to what the market will bear for that job and the skill level required to do it. If it doesn't take a lot of skill to learn how to do it, mopping the floor, anybody can learn how to do that. We teach our 10-year-olds how to do it when they want to help around the house. Why would someone get paid $15 an hour to do that? It doesn't make any sense. So when you do that under normal circumstances, it's a problem. When you're doing it in the middle of a pandemic where it's already hard to maintain that business to be open and for individuals to have a place to go and continue to bring in money when there's not a lot of new jobs available. I mean, this past last week or the last couple of days, there was a jobs report that came out that was relatively positive. And it's something I'm sure that the president will start touting and bragging about. But in reality, most of the increased employment numbers in the last 3.5 weeks have been people getting back the old jobs that they got furloughed from. They're not new jobs. They're people going back to their old jobs, which is good, but it's not the same as having true economic growth. So when you're in a situation where you're dealing with that, all this does is make it more difficult for that franchise owner to maintain staying in business. And then ultimately, the people who are doing this are hurting themselves. Now, the unions are smart because by hitching their cause to Black Lives Matter and social injustice and all of that, they can get more media attention. They can get more people to maybe jump on their side. They can make it seem like they're fighting for something that ultimately they're not really interested in doing. Believe me, SEIU doesn't have any, as an organization at least, they don't care about what's happening with police. They don't. Okay. Individual members of that organization who are people that are our neighbors, co-workers, family members, many of them do, I believe, as most Americans, care about the lives of all Americans. Black, white, Spanish, Asian, young, old. They care about them. They don't want to see them killed by cops for no reason. Okay? But the organization, the movement that we're seeing right now, no, this is an opportunity for them to use Black Lives Matter to further their own, agenda, which doesn't have anything to do with Black Lives Matter or police. And, whenever the minimum wage goes up, what typically happens when it's mandated for organizations that haven't already paid their employees a higher rate just because they want to, just because they're trying to, attract better workers. Very often, what ends up happening is they end up getting less hours. Maybe the restaurant contracts. They might close a location. They might not, they let some employees go. Normally, that's the first thing that happens. Because, look, if a restaurant, for instance, is paying, say that you've got a McDonald's, where you've got, for that location, say you've got 5 locations, and for those 5 locations, you've got a total of, say, 80 employees. And you're paying them $9 an hour, $10 an hour. And now you're going to jump up to $15 an hour. Remember, you don't have the billion-dollar coffers that McDonald's Corp has. You're not traded on the stock exchange. You live in a city with 5 locations. That's a huge percentage increase in your payroll. So if the choice is go out of business, close a location, and pay all of your 80 employees that money, or reduce your workforce, and therefore the ones that are left might get $15 an hour, but you've had to let go 20, 25 people, owners are going to let go 20 or 25 people. This is not anything new. We've seen, this is proven economic studies. This has been shown so often over the last 30 years, it's ridiculous, okay? But the extra sauce that we're dealing with right now, of course, is Corona. So, I doubt this type of legislation could get passed with everything else that's going on. But if it did, and certainly Democrats in local races and nationally as we get closer to the election are going to push for this, it's going to happen. And make no mistake, if McDonald's employees are able to unionize, they may be able to force the franchise owners to pay the employees who are part of that union more money. But what they can't force them to do is maintain the number of jobs at that franchise that the owner owns. What they can't do is force the franchise owner keep all of his locations open. Look, business owners at the end of the day, both either consciously or unconsciously, they'll look at their business much in the same way they do their lives. Okay. If somebody has, if you go to the doctor and your your thumb has gangrene, the doctor's going to cut the finger off. It's not going to be a discussion. He's going to cut the finger off because the body, your life, is more important than the thumb. It's the same thing with a business, whether it's one location or 20. The business, in this analogy, is the body. And in order for the business as a whole to stay in business, if employees have to be let go in order to meet the demands of either new legislation that mandate $15 an hour or unions demanding even more money for their employees and more expensive benefits, they'll cut off some of the employees. They'll just let them go because the idea is to stay in business. And the push or the having to make that type of decision in this environment when there are so many other forces that you're fighting as a business owner will make that decision, while painful, more obvious, and they'll do it a lot sooner. And then what happens to the people who this gentleman who walked off the job? What does he do if he wins the argument and then gets fired? Because the employer can't pay everybody that $15 an hour. I mean, what then? What we have to think about African Americans have to think about, but even white people who are in rural areas where it's the same situation, where there aren't a lot of jobs and you have a McDonald's and so you're happy to have the paycheck. You can't, spite your face, cut off your nose to spite your face. You can't do that. And so we're dealing with two different things here. What you want to do is, people need to recognize, now unions won't, but you need to recognize the moment in time that we're in. Black people who are part of the Black Lives Matter movement, or at least believe in the sentiment that they believe that the organization is supposed to be about, police reform, have to caution and stop organizations like the SEIU and others from co-opting what it is that they're trying to get accomplished. And then just, as an economic matter, what we have to understand and what representatives in not school boards, but local councils, state senators have to understand is this type of situation hurts your constituency over the long haul. But what about me and you, right? I mean, if you don't own a franchise, that's all nice. You're just trying to get some fries, right? You just want to get your chicken sandwich. You just want to get your Big Mac. I mean, you're just trying to get lunch or dinner because you don't feel like cooking. Well, think about the restaurant. You show up to get something to eat, and half of the employees are not working there now. Is that fast food now? Or are you going to be waiting like you were sitting down at a dining experience? Do you stay or do you go someplace else? I think most people leave and go someplace else because the whole point of getting fast food is to get food that's fast. Even if you like the food, even if you're doing it to not have to, cook that evening. You don't want to be standing around all day. So that's lost revenue for that business, lost time for you if you stick around. Time that, unless you're unemployed, you don't have. And if you're unemployed, you certainly don't have any sympathy for people who are working to throw away their own jobs. That's going to be it on this particular subject. If you have any comments or questions, please comment below. Please like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so that you get notifications for the rest of the videos that are going to be in the Corona economic series, as well as any other business stories that I bring to you on the Business Intercept.